The ruins smelled like burnt metal and death. David Reed kicked aside a piece of twisted steel as he made his way through what used to be a warehouse district. 3 months had passed since the fighting stopped on Tertius 7, but the scars remained everywhere. His boots crunched on broken glass with each step that he was supposed to be looking for survivors. Command still held hope that someone might be hiding in the abandoned sectors, waiting for rescue. David knew better. Nobody could survive 3 months without supplies in this wasteland. Still, orders were orders, and he followed them till a sound stopped in mid-step. Soft and weak, almost like birds chirping. David frowned and turned his head, trying to locate the source. There was again, coming from inside a collapsed building to his left. He pulled out his scanner and checked for life signs. The device lit up with 5 small signatures clustered together. His heart rate picked up. Survivors, after all. David climbed through a gap in the fallen wall, using his flashlight to see in the darkness. The chirping grew louder. He rounded a corner and froze completely. 5 creatures huddled together in what looked like a nest made of scavenged fabric and metal. They were covered in scales that shimmered weakly in his flashlight beam, each one about the size of a large dog. Small wings were folded against their sides. Their eyes, large and terrified, stared at him as they pressed closer together. Dragons. Actual dragons. Behind them lay the massive body of an adult dragon, clearly their mother. A piece of orbital bombardment debris had crushed her back, killing her instantly from the look of it. The smell told David she had been dead for at least a week. His medical training kicked in automatically. He approached slowly, keeping his movements calm and steady. The hatchlings watched him, but were too weak to flee. David knelt beside them and ran his scanner over each one, but the readings were bad. Severe dehydration in all 5. Malnutrition approaching critical levels. One had a wing bent at an unnatural angle, definitely broken. Another's breathing was shallow and irregular. They were dying. David sat back on his heels and pressed his comm unit. He should call this in immediately. Dragons were protected by 17 different galactic laws. Interfering with them could mean court-martial. The proper procedure was to report the location and let environmental services handle it. He looked at the 5 pairs of eyes watching him. The smallest one made a weak, chirping sound and tried to move closer to him. It collapsed after 2 steps, too weak to continue. Environmental services was 3 systems away. Even with priority transport, they would need 4 days minimum to arrive. These hatchlings had maybe 12 hours left. David made his decision. He stripped off his field jacket and carefully wrapped the smallest hatchling in it. The creature was cold to the touch, its scales barely glowing. He lifted it gently and felt how light it was, far too light. The others chirped in distress as he picked up their sibling. "I'm coming back for you," David told them, as if they could understand. "I promise." His AI assistant, Iris, activated automatically. Medical Officer Reed, regulations clearly state that protected species must not be disturbed. I am required to log this incident. "Log whatever you want," David said as he carried the dying hatchling toward his transport. "I'm not leaving them to die." He made 5 trips total, moving each hatchling carefully to his vehicle. They were so weak that none of them struggled. The one with the broken wing whimpered when he lifted it, and David's heart broke a little. He had seen plenty of suffering during the war, but something about these helpless creatures hit differently. Back at his transport, David arranged the hatchlings on padded supply crates. He gave each one a careful injection of basic hydration solution, the kind used for treating shock in humans. He had no idea if it would work on dragons, but doing something was better than watching them die. The smallest one, still wrapped in his jacket, opened its mouth and made a sound like a kitten mewling. David touched its head gently. The scales felt like warm glass under his fingers. "Hang on," he whispered. "Just hang on." He drove back to the abandoned medical facility he had been using as a base. His mind was already racing through possibilities. Dragons were reptilian in appearance, but clearly warm-blooded based on their body temperature. They had features similar to birds with those wings. Their internal structure was completely unknown to him. Everything in his training screamed that he was unqualified for this. He was a combat medic, trained to patch up humans in battlefield conditions. He had basic knowledge of treating some common alien species, but dragons? They were so rare that most medical texts only mention them in historical context. Iris spoke again as he unloaded the hatchlings. Officer Reed, the probability of success in treating these creatures without proper training is less than 8%. I strongly advise contacting environmental services. Noted and ignored, David said. He carried the hatchlings inside one by one, setting them on a large surgical table he had cleared. Under the bright medical lights, he could see just how bad their condition was. Their scales, which should have been vibrant and glowing, were dull and lifeless. Ribs showed clearly under their skin. He pulled up every file he had on alien biology. Cross-referenced dragon anatomy with Earth reptiles, birds, and a few alien species with similar features. The information was scattered and incomplete, but it was all he had. The hatchling with the broken wing tried to move and cried out in pain. David carefully examined the injury. The wing bones were hollow and delicate, similar to bird bones but with a more complex structure. He would need to set it soon or risk permanent damage. First things first, though, he needed to stabilize them all before attempting any procedures. David worked through the night, setting up 4 drips with modified hydration solutions. He used heating pads to bring their body temperatures up slowly. He monitored their vital signs constantly, making adjustments based on how they responded. The smallest one worried him the most. Its breathing kept getting weaker. Around 3 in the morning, it stopped breathing entirely. David didn't hesitate. He started chest compressions, counting in his head. 15 compressions. Then he breathed air into the tiny mouth. Nothing. He repeated the cycle. Still nothing. He was about to try a 3rd time when his scanner showed 2 heartbeats. 2. Dragons had a dual heart system. David adjusted his technique, changing the compression location and rhythm. On the 5th cycle, the hatchling gasped and its eyes flew open. Its scales flickered with faint light. That's it, David breathed. Come on, kid. Stay with me. Dawn was breaking outside when all 5 hatchlings finally stabilized. They were still in critical condition, but they were alive and their vital signs were holding steady. David slumped against the wall, exhausted but unable to look away from them. The smallest one, the one he had revived, made a soft chirping sound and looked directly at him. Something in that gaze felt knowing, almost grateful. David smiled despite his exhaustion. He had just violated about 20 regulations and probably destroyed his military career. Environmental services would arrive eventually and take the hatchlings away. He would face consequences, but right now, watching their scales begin to glow brighter as they slept peacefully for the first time in days, he couldn't bring himself to regret it. He had saved 5 lives today. Whatever happened next, that would always be true. David's hands shook as he ground the mineral supplement into powder. He had been awake for 36 hours straight, running on coffee and determination. The 5 hatchlings lay on heated beds around his makeshift laboratory, their scales slightly brighter than yesterday, but still dangerously dim. They were alive, but they were starving. He had tried everything. Synthetic proteins, vitamin solutions, even hand-feeding them processed meat paste. They would smell the food, open their mouths eagerly, but then turn away as if it disgusted them. 2 had tried to eat and immediately vomited it back up. David pulled up another research file on his screen. According to the limited data available, dragon hatchlings required specific enzymes to digest food properly. In nature, they got these enzymes from their mother's saliva when she pre-chewed food for them. Without it, their digestive systems simply could not break down nutrients. The mother was dead. No other dragons existed anywhere nearby. David was out of options that he stared at the chemical breakdown of dragon digestive enzymes displayed on his screen. They were complex protein chains, impossible to synthesize with his limited equipment. But maybe, just maybe, he could find something similar enough to work. Iris projected a warning message. Officer Reed, attempting to substitute unknown compounds for species-specific enzymes carries extreme risk. Probability of fatal reaction is 63%. What's the probability they survive without food? David asked. Iris went silent. They both knew the answer was zero. David spent the next 4 hours comparing enzyme structures. Dragon digestive enzymes shared some similarities with human pancreatic enzymes, specifically those that broke down proteins. They also needed certain mineral compounds found in volcanic soil, which dragons apparently consume naturally. It was insane. It would probably kill them. But doing nothing would definitely kill them. He prepared a mixture of human pancreatic enzyme supplements, mineral compounds from his medical supplies, and a glucose solution for energy. His hands were steady now, all doubt pushed aside. This was what combat medics did. They made impossible choices and lived with the consequences. The smallest hatchling, the one he had revived, watched him approach with curious eyes. David had started thinking of it as tiny, though he knew better than to name them. They were not his to keep. "This is either going to save you or kill you," David told Tiny honestly. "I wish I had better options." He mixed the enzyme solution into a paste with ground meat and held it close to Tiny's nose. The hatchling sniffed cautiously, then its tongue flicked out and tasted the mixture. David held his breath. Tiny took a small bite, then another. Then it started eating with desperate hunger. David wanted to cheer, but forced himself to stay calm. He watched Tiny's vital signs on his scanner like a hawk. Heart rate steady, blood chemistry shifting but within acceptable ranges, digestive system activating, and no signs of rejection. No toxic reaction. It was working. He quickly prepared portions for the other four. The one with the broken wing, the boldest of the group, ate eagerly. The timid one in the corner needed coaxing, but eventually ate as well. Within an hour, all five were eating for the first time since their mother died. David finally let himself smile. First hurdle cleared. The next challenge was the broken wing. David examined it carefully under magnification. The bone had fractured in 2 places, and the wing membrane was torn. In a human, this would require surgery and metal pins. For a dragon with hollow bones and a wing structure he barely understood, it would require improvisation. He sedated the injured hatchling gently, speaking softly as the medication took effect. The creature fought the sedation at first, chirping in fear, but Tiny moved closer and pressed against its sibling. The injured one calmed and fell asleep. David worked for 2 hours, carefully realigning the bones. He used a lightweight polymer splint instead of metal, securing it with medical adhesive designed for delicate tissue. The wing membrane he stitched with dissolving thread, the kind used for internal sutures. Each stitch had to be perfect or it could tear the fragile skin. Sweat dripped down his face as he worked. One wrong move could cripple this creature for life. Dragons were meant to fly. Taking that away would be worse than death. Finally, he tied off the last stitch and stepped back. The wing was immobilized in a position that would allow proper healing. If everything went right, the hatchling would fly again in a few weeks. If everything went right. David was cleaning his instruments when Tiny suddenly made a distressed sound. He spun around to see the smallest hatchling gasping for air, its scales flickering wildly. The scanner showed its hearts racing, beating out of sync with each other. Cardiac arrhythmia. The dual heart system was misfiring. David grabbed a neural stimulator, the kind used to restart human hearts. He had no idea what setting to use for a dragon. Too much power could stop both hearts permanently. Too little would do nothing. He set it to the lowest setting and pressed it against Tiny's chest. Nothing. He increased power and tried again. Tiny's body jerked, but the hearts were still out of sync. David made a choice. He increased the power to a level that would be dangerous for a human and activated the device. Tiny's entire body convulsed. The heart stopped completely for 2 seconds that felt like hours. Then they restarted, beating in perfect synchronization. David collapsed into a chair, his own heart pounding. That was too close. Tiny looked at him with those large eyes and made a soft sound, almost like a purr. The other hatchlings gathered around their smallest sibling protectively. Over the next 3 days, David established a routine. He fed them every 4 hours with his improvised enzyme mixture, gradually increasing the portions as their bodies grew stronger. He monitored their vital signs constantly, making tiny adjustments to their medication and nutrition. The hatchlings grew visibly healthier. Their scales brightened, shifting from dull gray to brilliant colors. One turned deep blue, another emerald green, one ruby red, another golden, and Tiny became a striking silver. They started moving around more, exploring their environment with increasing curiosity. David discovered their personalities quickly. The bold blue one tried to climb everything. The green one was cautious but observant, studying David's every move. The red one was protective and would position itself between David and the others whenever he approached. The gold one was playful, turning everything into a game. And Tiny, the silver one, was quietly intelligent, watching and learning. They started following him everywhere. When he left the room, they chirped in distress. When he returned, they crowded around his legs, their scales glowing brighter. Iris provided updates on the automated inventory system. Officer Reed, medical supply discrepancies have been flagged. Command will investigate within 48 hours. David looked at the 5 hatchlings currently curled up together under a heat lamp, their scales pulsing with gentle light as they slept. They were still fragile, still recovering, but they were alive and getting stronger every day. He had known this moment would come. You could not hide 5 growing dragons forever. Let them investigate, David said quietly. These kids needed help. I gave it to them. Tiny opened one eye and looked at him, as if understanding. The small dragon uncurled itself and walked over to David, pressing its head against his hand. David stroked the smooth scales gently. You're going to be okay, he promised. All of you are going to be okay. He just hoped he could keep that promise when command arrived with questions he could not answer. Colonel Patricia Okonkwo did not knock. She walked straight into David's medical facility with 3 armed soldiers behind her, her face set in hard lines. David barely had time to step in front of the hatchlings before she stopped in front of him. Medical Officer Reed, she said in a voice like ice. Explain to me why you have depleted 40% of our medical supplies in 5 days. The 5 hatchlings pressed against David's legs, sensing the tension. Tiny peeked around his knee, looking up at the colonel with curious eyes. Patricia's gaze dropped to the dragons. Her expression did not change for 3 full seconds. Then her eyes went wide. Those are dragons, she said flatly. Yes, ma'am, David replied. Protected by galactic law dragons. Yes, ma'am. Patricia closed her eyes and took a deep breath. When she opened them again, fury blazed there. Do you have any idea what you have done? The regulations you have violated? The diplomatic nightmare this creates. I saved 5 lives, ma'am, David said simply. They were dying. I had the skills to help. I helped. You had orders to report and not interfere with protected species. Patricia shot back. You disobeyed direct protocol. This is court-martial territory, Reed. The blue hatchling, the bold one, growled softly at Patricia. It was a small sound, barely threatening, but it made the soldiers raise their weapons nervously. David held up a hand. Easy, he told the hatchling. To Patricia, he said, shoot me if you want, ma'am. But these hatchlings stay under medical care until they are strong enough to be moved safely. Patricia opened her mouth to respond, but a new voice interrupted. Nobody is shooting anyone today. A crystalline figure materialized in the doorway. It stood roughly human height, but was composed entirely of translucent blue crystal that refracted light into rainbow patterns. Environmental Officer Shale of the Galactic Syndicate had arrived. I detected dragon biological signatures from orbit, Shale said, their voice musical and strange. I came immediately. Where is the adult? Dead, David answered. Killed by bombardment debris 3 months ago. These are hatchlings. They were dying when I found them a week ago. Shale moved closer, and the hatchlings backed up nervously. The crystalline alien pulled out a scanner and ran it over each dragon carefully. 5 juveniles, approximately 6 weeks old. Signs of recent severe malnutrition and dehydration, currently recovering. 1 with a healing wing fracture. Shale turned to David. You treated them? Yes. With what training? Combat medic training and improvisation, David admitted. Shale was quiet for a long moment. These hatchlings should be dead. Dragon young cannot survive without their mother past 72 hours. Yet here they are, not only alive, but thriving. The alien's crystalline face somehow conveyed respect. You accomplished something remarkable, human. Thank you, David said cautiously. However, Shale continued, they cannot remain here. I am authorized to transport them to the nearest dragon sanctuary, where they will receive proper care from trained specialists. How far is the nearest sanctuary? Patricia asked. 3 weeks by standard transport. David felt his stomach drop. They're not strong enough for that journey. Another week minimum before their systems are stable enough to handle transport stress. Shale consulted their scanner. The medical data supports this assessment. Very well. You have 1 week to prepare them for transport, medical officer read. I will remain here to monitor the situation and ensure proper protocols are followed. Patricia looked between Shale and David, clearly wrestling with the political implications. Finally, she nodded sharply. 1 week. Reed, you work with Officer Shale. Use whatever resources you need. But in 7 days, these dragons leave this planet. Over the following days, David worked closely with Shale. The crystalline alien was initially cold and bureaucratic, but gradually warmed as they observed David's dedication. Shale provided proper dragon nutrition data, and David adjusted his enzyme mixture to be more effective. The hatchlings continued growing stronger. They started attempting small flights around the facility, their wings beating with increasing confidence. The one with the broken wings still could not fly, but it hobbled around enthusiastically, eager to join its siblings. David noticed something troubling, though. Whenever he tried to leave the facility, even for short periods, the hatchlings became distressed. They would stop eating and huddle together, their scales dimming. The moment he returned, they rushed to him and their colors brightened again. Shale observed this behavior with increasing concern. On the 5th day, the alien pulled David aside. They have imprinted on you, Shale said quietly. What does that mean? Dragons bond for life with their primary caretaker. In nature, this is their mother. But these hatchlings lost their mother at a critical developmental stage. You replaced her. They have bonded to you as their parent. David stared at the 5 dragons, currently sleeping in a pile together. Can that bond be broken? Transferred to someone else? Not without severe psychological trauma, Shale admitted. Forced separation from a bonded partner has killed adult dragons. For juveniles this young, the stress would almost certainly be fatal. David felt the weight of that knowledge settle on him. So what are you saying? I am saying that you may have saved their lives, but you have also tied your fate to theirs permanently. Before David could respond, alarms blared throughout the facility. Patricia's voice came over the comm system. All personnel to defensive positions. We have hostile incoming. David ran to the security monitors. 3 unmarked ships were landing near the facility. Armed figures poured out, at least 20 of them. Separatist forces, Patricia reported. They must have heard rumors about the dragons. Black market for dragon parts is worth millions. David felt cold fury wash over him. These people wanted to kill his hatchlings and sell their bodies. He grabbed a rifle from the weapons locker and checked the charge. Iris locked down the medical wing. Maximum security protocols. Complied. The AI responded. The attack came fast and brutal. Separatist soldiers breached the outer walls within minutes. Patricia and her troops fought back hard, but they were outnumbered. David positioned himself in the medical wing between the attackers and the hatchlings. The dragons sensed danger and gathered behind him. Scales glowing bright with fear and adrenaline. .2 separatists made it through the defenses and into the medical wing. David dropped the first with 3 shots. The second got past him and raised a weapon toward the hatchlings. Tiny, the smallest dragon, stepped forward. The silver hatchling opened its mouth and a small burst of flame shot out, striking the soldier's weapon and melting it instantly. David stared in shock. Dragons did not develop fire breathing until they were at least 6 months old. Yet Tiny had done it to protect him. The red hatchling joined in, breathing another small flame. Then the blue one. The attackers retreated in panic, shouting about fire-breathing dragons. Patricia's forces pushed back the assault, and the separatist ships fled within the hour. When the smoke cleared, David found himself sitting on the floor with 5 dragons pressed against him from all sides, purring in relief. Shale stood in the doorway, observing the scene. You protected them. They protected you. The bond is complete. Patricia entered, looking tired but satisfied. Everyone all right? We are fine, David said. Then he looked at Shale. What happens now? The crystalline alien was quiet for a long time. I need to contact the Galactic Council. This situation is unprecedented in modern times. Dragons choosing to bond with a human, protecting that human in combat. The rules were not written for this. David pulled Tiny closer. The small silver dragon looked up at him with complete trust. Whatever the council decides, David said firmly, I am not abandoning them. I know, Shale replied. I suspect they will not abandon you either. The holo conference chamber was packed with representatives from 17 different species. David stood in the center, feeling very small and very human under the gaze of so many alien eyes. The 5 hatchlings sat behind him in a specially prepared enclosure, visible to all the council members through transparent barriers. Elder Witness Toma, an ancient being who looked like a walking tree, spoke first. Their voice creaked like old wood. We are here to determine the fate of 5 dragon hatchlings and 1 human who violated galactic preservation laws. Medical Officer David Reed. Do you understand the charges against you? I do, David said clearly. Do you deny that you interfered with a protected species without authorization? I do not deny it. Murmurs ran through the assembled aliens. A representative from the bird-like avic species spoke up. Then you admit guilt. The law is clear. The hatchlings must be removed to proper care, and you must face criminal charges. Shale stood from their position. If I may, Elder Witness, the situation is not so simple. Explain, Thomas said. Shale activated a holographic display showing medical data. When Medical Officer Reed found these hatchlings, they had less than 12 hours to live. The nearest qualified dragon care facility was 4 days away. By law, he should have reported their location and departed. By law, all 5 hatchlings would be dead. The law exists to protect dragons from exploitation, another council member argued. And yet it would have killed these 5, Shale countered. Medical Officer Reed made an impossible choice. He chose life over law. An old alien with skin like weathered stone spoke up. Her name was Archive Keeper Vessa, and she was considered the galaxy's leading expert on dragon history. I've been researching this case extensively. What Officer Reed accomplished is remarkable not just medically, but historically. She projected images of ancient carvings and texts. 10,000 years ago, dragons bonded with many species across the galaxy. Humans were not among them, as they had not yet achieved space travel. But the traits dragons seek in bonded partners are clear: adaptability, protective instincts, emotional resilience, and the willingness to sacrifice for others. Vessa looked directly at David. This human displayed all of these traits. He risked his career, violated laws he knew existed, and worked for days without rest to save creatures he had never encountered before. The dragons recognized this. They chose him. Chose him? The Avix representative asked skeptically. Vessa gestured to the enclosure. Watch. A technician brought food into the dragon enclosure. All 5 hatchlings ignored it completely. They pressed against the transparent barrier, looking at David and chirping anxiously. Minutes passed. The food sat untouched. Then David was allowed to enter the enclosure. Immediately, all 5 dragons surrounded him, their scales glowing brightly. He sat down among them, and they settled around him peacefully. Only then did they begin to eat. They will not eat unless he is present, Shale explained. They show signs of severe stress when separated from him. This is not simple familiarity. This is the dragon bond, as strong as any recorded in ancient times. Elder Toma leaned forward. If we separate them, what happens? Vessa's expression was grave. Historical records show that forced separation from a bonded partner causes cascading system failure in dragons. These juveniles are even more vulnerable. Separation would likely kill them within days. The chamber erupted in arguments. Some demanded David be punished regardless. Others insisted the dragon's well-being came first. The debate raged for hours. During a recess, Patricia approached David. "How are you holding up?" "Honestly, I am terrified," David admitted. "Not for me, for them." Patricia looked at the 5 dragons currently curled around David's feet. "You know your life will never be normal again if the council rules in your favor." "My life stopped being normal the moment I found them dying in those ruins," David said. "I would not change that choice." Tiny, the silver dragon, looked up at David and made a soft sound. The little dragon had grown noticeably in 2 weeks, now the size of a medium dog. Its scales shimmered like starlight. The council reconvened. Elder Thomas spoke with obvious weight. "We have heard testimony from Medical Officer Reed, Environmental Officer Shale, and Archive Keeper Vessa. We have reviewed historical precedents and current law. This is our decision." David held his breath. The dragon hatchlings cannot be separated from Medical Officer Reed without risk to their lives. This bond, though unprecedented in modern times, is legitimate according to historical standards. Therefore, Medical Officer Reed will be granted provisional custody as a registered dragon keeper. Relief flooded through David, but Toma was not finished. However, this comes with strict conditions. Medical Officer Reed must complete formal training in dragon care. The hatchlings must be registered with Galactic Environmental Services. Regular health inspections will be mandatory. Any sign of neglect or abuse will result in immediate removal and criminal charges. "I accept all conditions," David said immediately. Furthermore, Toma continued, "you will be assigned to a permanent station where dragon care is possible. Your military service will be restructured around your responsibilities to these creatures." Patricia stepped forward. "Elder Witness, I would like to propose that Tertius 7 be designated as an official dragon sanctuary zone. We have the space, resources, and now the expertise." "An interesting proposal," Toma mused. "We will consider it." The gavel came down. "This hearing is concluded. Medical Officer Reed, you are now officially recognized as keeper to 5 dragon hatchlings. May you honor this responsibility." The chamber cleared slowly. David sat with his dragons, barely believing what had happened. He was officially their keeper. They were officially his responsibility. Shale approached, their crystalline form reflecting the lights beautifully. "Congratulations, Keeper Reed. You have made history today." "I just wanted to save them," David said. "You did more than that," Shale replied. "You renewed a bond that was lost for thousands of years. You proved that humans, despite being newcomers to the galactic community, carry the traits that dragons value most." Over the next few days, David underwent intensive training via remote instruction. He learned proper dragon nutrition, developmental stages, flight training techniques, and emergency medical procedures specific to dragon physiology. The hatchlings participated enthusiastically, especially when training involved flying practice. The one with the broken wing, the red dragon David now called Bold, finally had its splint removed. The wing had healed perfectly. David watched with pride as Bold took its first flight, wobbly at first but growing steadier with each wing beat. All 5 dragons were flying now, practicing in the open fields around the facility. They stayed close to David always, never straying far from their bonded keeper. Iris provided a status update. "Keeper Reed, you have received official communication from Galactic Environmental Services. Tertius 7 has been approved as a dragon sanctuary zone. Additional resources are being allocated." David looked up at his 5 dragons soaring through the sky, their scales catching the sunlight in brilliant colors. Blue, green, red, gold, and silver trails painted the air. Patricia joined him, watching the display. "You realize what you have started here?" "What do you mean?" Galactic Environmental Services received reports of 3 more abandoned dragon nests in other systems. They are requesting human medics specifically to attempt rescue operations. Patricia smiled slightly. "Your success has changed how the galaxy views both humans and dragons." David watched Tiny dive and loop through the air, the smallest dragon now keeping pace with its larger siblings. "I never meant to change anything. I just could not let them die." "That is exactly why it worked," Patricia said. You did not seek glory or recognition. You saw lives that needed saving, and you saved them. Dragons recognized that. Now the whole galaxy has to recognize it too. The 5 dragons descended together, landing around David in a protective circle. They had grown so much in just 3 weeks. Soon they would be even larger, eventually reaching the size of horses. Then bigger still, David knelt among them, and they pressed close, purring contentedly. He was their keeper now, officially and permanently. His life had changed in ways he never imagined. But as Tiny settled against his side and looked up at him with complete trust, David knew he would not want it any other way. 6 weeks after the council hearing, David stood in what used to be an abandoned industrial complex. Now, it was a proper dragon sanctuary, complete with reinforced flight spaces, climate-controlled resting areas, and state-of-the-art medical facilities. The transformation was remarkable. His 5 dragons had grown significantly. Each was now the size of a small horse, with wingspans that stretched 4 meters. Their scales had deepened in color, becoming rich and vibrant. They soared through the practice arena, executing complex aerial maneuvers with increasing skill. Bold, the red dragon, led the formations. Quick, the blue one, performed daring loops and rolls. Calm, the green dragon, flew with steady precision. Joy, the golden dragon, turned everything into a game, diving and swooping playfully. And Tiny, still the smallest, but no longer fragile, flew with surprising grace and intelligence. David had finally allowed himself to name them. They were his family now. Names felt right that a transport ship landed on the designated pad, and David recognized the insignia. Galactic Environmental Services. Shale emerged first, followed by 3 other officials and a group of humans in medical uniforms. Keeper Reed, Shale greeted warmly. I have brought visitors who wish to learn from your methods. The humans introduced themselves as combat medics from various Earth military branches. A woman named Rachel spoke first. We heard about what you did, saving 5 dragons with nothing but field supplies and determination. We want to learn, because there are more dragons out there who need help. David felt a surge of pride mixed with responsibility. I will teach you everything I know, but understand there is no manual for this. Every dragon is different. You have to be willing to improvise and take risks. Over the next 3 days, David trained the new medics. He showed them how to assess dragon vital signs, how to modify human medical techniques for dragon physiology, how to recognize signs of bonding behavior. The 5 dragons participated, allowing the medics to practice examinations and treatments under controlled conditions. Tiny seemed particularly interested in the teaching process. The silver dragon would watch David explain procedures, then demonstrate them to the students by positioning itself carefully and remaining still during practice examinations. That one is special, Rachel observed. It understands what you are teaching us. Tiny understands a lot, David agreed. More than I initially realized. On the 4th day, Shale requested a private meeting. They walked through the sanctuary grounds as the dragons practiced flight overhead. The 3 abandoned nests I mentioned have been located and accessed, Shale said. 2 were found too late. The hatchlings had already died. David felt his heart sink. And the 3rd, 6 hatchlings, found just in time by a human medic trained in your methods. All 6 survived and are bonding with their keeper. Shale's crystalline face somehow conveyed satisfaction. Your success has created a template that saved 6 lives. That is good news, David said, feeling some of the weight lift. There is more, Shale continued. Archive Keeper Vessa has made a significant discovery. She found records of the last dragon-bonded warriors from nearly 8,000 years ago. They were protectors, defenders of peaceful species against those who would harm them. Dragons and their bonded partners working together saved countless lives. Why did the practice end? Wars, Shale said simply. Galactic conflicts that killed most dragons and scattered the survivors. The knowledge of bonding was lost, and dragons became so rare they were declared protected. The protection kept them from extinction, but also isolated them from forming new bonds. David watched his dragons flying in perfect synchronization overhead. So we're bringing back something ancient. You already have, Shale replied. And the galaxy is taking notice. That evening, David received a communication from Earth. His family had seen news reports about the Dragon Keeper. His mother appeared on screen, tears in her eyes. "David, we are so proud of you," she said. "You saved those beautiful creatures. The whole planet is talking about you." His younger brother appeared beside her. "You are famous, Dave. Kids at school are writing reports about you. You have inspired an entire generation to join xenobiology programs." David felt overwhelmed. He had never wanted fame. He just wanted to help. After the call ended, Tiny approached and pressed against his leg. The silver dragon made a questioning sound, sensing David's emotional state. "I am fine," David told Tiny, just realizing how much everything has changed. The dragon made a soft purring sound and settled beside him. The other four joined him shortly after, forming their usual protective circle around their keeper. Iris activated with a priority message. "Keeper read, you have incoming communication from Galactic Council Elder Toma. Marked urgent." David accepted the call. The ancient tree-like being appeared in hologram form. "Keeper read, I apologize for the late hour," Thomas said. "I have a proposal that requires your immediate consideration." "I am listening." "We wish to establish an official Dragon Keeper training program here on Tertius 7, with you as head instructor. Human medics would come from across known space to learn your methods. You would train the next generation of Dragon Keepers." David felt the weight of that responsibility. "That is a significant undertaking." "It is," Toma agreed. "But you have proven yourself uniquely qualified. More importantly, you have proven that humans possess the traits dragons seek in bonded partners. This program could save dozens, perhaps hundreds of dragon lives in the coming years." David looked at his 5 dragons. They were watching him intently, as if understanding the importance of this decision. "I will need proper facilities, funding, and support staff," David said. "All will be provided," Toma assured him. "Then I accept." Toma's expression, as much as a tree being could express, showed approval. "Excellent. You will receive full details within the week." "The galaxy owes you a debt," Keeper read. After the call ended, David sat with his dragons in the quiet evening. The stars were coming out overhead, brilliant against the darkening sky. "We are about to get very busy," he told them. "Lots of new people coming here. Lots of new dragons to help." Bold rumbled approval. Quick chirped excitedly. Calm settled more firmly against David's back. Joy bounced in place, already eager for new playmates. And Tiny, wise beyond its months, simply looked at David with those intelligent silver eyes. David understood what he saw there. Pride. Trust. Family Point 3 months ago, he had been a simple combat medic going through the motions. Now he was the first human dragon keeper in modern history, head instructor of a galactic training program, and guardian to 5 remarkable creatures who had chosen him as their own. Rachel approached from the direction of the medical building. "Keeper read, we received word that another nest has been found. For hatchlings, mother killed in an industrial accident. The Keeper candidate is asking for guidance on enzyme supplements." David stood, his dragons rising with him. "Show me the data. We will walk them through it step by step." As he headed to the command center with his 5 dragons following in formation, David allowed himself a small smile. This was his life now, teaching others to save dragons, expanding the ancient bond between species, making sure that no hatchling was ever left to die alone in the ruins. That IT was exhausting, overwhelming, and sometimes terrifying. That IT was also exactly where he was meant to be. The dragons had chosen him, and he had chosen them in return. Together, they were writing a new chapter in galactic history, one saved life at a time. The morning sun painted the sanctuary in shades of gold and orange. David watched from the observation platform as 23 dragons of various ages practiced flight formations across the sprawling complex. 6 months had passed since the council approved the training program, and Tertius 7 had transformed into the galaxy's premier Dragon Keeper Academy. His original 5 dragons, now the size of large horses, led the younger hatchlings through basic maneuvers. Bold commanded with natural authority. Quick demonstrated speed techniques. Com showed precision flying. Joy made the lessons fun. And Tiny, now called that ironically since it had grown into the most graceful flyer of all, taught the subtle art of aerial communication. 15 human keepers were currently in training, each bonded to rescued hatchlings. The sanctuary housed 42 dragons total, with more arriving every week as abandoned nests were discovered across the galaxy. Rachel, now his assistant instructor, joined him on the platform. Keeper Reed, the new class starts in an hour. 20 applicants from 7 different species. David nodded. The program had expanded beyond humans after the council recognized that other species also possessed the traits dragons valued. How many humans in this group? 12. The rest are Avix, Terran settlers, and 2 crystalline-formed beings like Shale. Good diversity, David said. Dragons do not care about what species you are. They care about who you are. His comm unit chimed. Iris projected a message. Keeper Reed, priority transmission from Earth Central Command. Admiral Williams appeared in hologram form. Keeper Reed, I have news from home. Your story has had a remarkable impact. Applications to xenobiology programs have increased 300%. Medical schools are adding xenospecies care to their core curriculum. You have changed how humanity views our role in the galaxy. I just saved some hatchlings, sir, David said uncomfortably. You did more than that, Williams replied. You showed the galaxy that humans do not just take and conquer. We nurture, we protect, we form bonds across species lines. The political implications alone have been significant. 3 species that were skeptical of human expansion have opened diplomatic channels specifically because of your work. After the call ended, David made his way to the training center. The new applicants waited nervously in the assembly hall. He recognized the look in their eyes. Hope mixed with fear, mixed with determination. Welcome to Dragon Keeper Academy, David began. Some of you are medics. Some are veterinarians. Some have no formal training at all. That does not matter. What matters is why you are here. He gestured to the windows where dragons flew past in a spectacular display. You are here because somewhere in the galaxy, there is a dragon hatchling who will need you. Maybe its mother was killed in an accident. Maybe it was abandoned. Maybe it is sick or injured. When that moment comes, you will be the difference between life and death. David walked among the applicants. This training is hard. You will work 20-hour days. You will fail repeatedly. You will doubt yourself constantly. But if you survive this program, you will have the skills to save lives that no one else in the galaxy can save. A young human woman raised her hand. Keeper Reed, is it true that you had no dragon training when you saved your 5? Completely true, David admitted. I improvised everything. Made mistakes constantly. Almost lost them several times. He smiled slightly. That is exactly why this program exists. So you do not have to learn the way I did. Over the next weeks, David pushed the new class hard. They learned dragon anatomy, physiology, psychology, and emergency medicine. They practiced on training simulations and worked with adult dragons who volunteered as teaching assistants. Bold particularly enjoyed working with students, testing their nerve by flying directly at them and turning aside at the last moment. Those who stood their ground earned the red dragon's respect. Those who flinched had to try again. Tiny took a different approach. The silver dragon would observe students carefully, then present them with problems to solve. A pretend injury, a simulated distress call, a behavioral challenge. Students learned quickly that Tiny was testing their problem-solving skills. One student, a young man named Aaron, struggled with every aspect of training. His hands shook during practical exercises. He failed written tests. Other students began avoiding him, seeing him as a weak link. David pulled Aaron aside after a particularly difficult day. Talk to me. What is going on? Aaron looked miserable. I'm not good enough for this. I should quit. Why did you apply to this program? David asked. My little sister loves dragons. She has a degenerative illness. Doctors say she is maybe a year. Aaron's voice cracked. She told me she wants to see real dragons before she dies. I thought if I became a keeper, I could give her that. David was quiet for a moment. Let me tell you something about the day I found my 5. I was terrified. I had no idea what I was doing. My hand shook so badly I could barely hold my scanner. But I did it anyway because those hatchlings needed help and I was the only one there. He put a hand on Aaron's shoulder. Being a good keeper is not about being perfect. It is about showing up even when you are scared. It is about trying even when you might fail. Dragons do not bond with the strongest or smartest. They bond with those who refuse to give up. Aaron wiped his eyes. How do I get better? Practice. Study. Ask for help when you need it. And remember why you are here. 3 weeks later, Aaron passed his final practical exam. When David handed him his keeper certification, the young man was crying. "Thank you," Aaron said, "for not giving up on me." "Thank you for not giving up on yourself," David replied. The graduation ceremony was held in the main arena. 15 new keepers, each bonded to young dragons, stood before the assembled crowd. Representatives from the Galactic Council attended, along with officials from dozens of species. Elder Toma gave the keynote address. 6 months ago, this facility did not exist. Dragon keepers were a legend from ancient history. One human changed that. Keeper David Reed reminded the galaxy that some bonds transcend time and species. Today, we celebrate 15 new keepers who will carry that legacy forward. After the ceremony, David stood with his 5 dragons watching the new keepers depart with their bonded partners. Tiny pressed against his side. "They're going to do great things," David said softly. "Save lives we will never hear about. Form bonds that will last lifetimes." Bold rumbled agreement. Quick chirped happily. Calm settled peacefully beside them. Joy playfully nudged David's other side. Rachel approached with a datapad. "Keeper Reed, you have 43 applications for next session. We need to expand facilities again." David looked at the numbers and smiled. "Approve the expansion. And Rachel, start planning for an advanced keeper program. We need instructors for the instructors." "Already on it," she said with a grin. That evening, David walked through the sanctuary grounds. Dragon calls echoed across the complex as the creatures settled for the night. Keepers and dragons moved together in perfect harmony, bonds of trust and love visible in every interaction. He thought about the man he had been 7 months ago. A burnout combat medic going through the motions, haunted by all the lives he could not save. Then 5 dying hatchlings changed everything. Tiny made a questioning sound. David looked down at the silver dragon who had started as the smallest and weakest, now strong and magnificent. "Just thinking about how far we have all come," David said. The dragon pressed closer, understanding in its eyes. The bond between them had grown into something deeper than words. They communicated through feeling and intuition now, understanding each other perfectly. David's comm unit activated. Iris displayed a message from a remote colony. "Emergency. Dragon nest found. Mother dead. 7 hatchlings critical condition. Requesting immediate keeper response." David tapped his comm. "This is Keeper Reed. Deploy Keeper Team 3. Have them reference Emergency Protocol 7. I will provide remote guidance." He watched the response team mobilize quickly and efficiently. Trained keepers moving with purpose and confidence. They would save those 7 hatchlings. He was certain of it. Bold, quick, calm, joy, and Tiny gathered around him as the stars emerged overhead. His family, his partners, the 5 dragons who had chosen a random combat medic and changed his life forever. "You know what the best part is?" David asked them. "Every hatchling we save, every keeper we train, every bond we help form, it all started because I found you 5 in those ruins. You saved me as much as I saved you." Tiny scales glowed softly in response. The silver dragon understood. They all did. Somewhere in the galaxy, 7 hatchlings were being rescued by trained keepers. Next month, it would be more. Next year, dozens. The ancient bond between dragons and those brave enough to protect them was being renewed, one saved life at a time. David Reed, once a simple combat medic, now stood at the center of a movement that was changing the galaxy. Not through force or politics, but through compassion, dedication, and the simple belief that every life was worth saving. He looked up at the stars, knowing that tomorrow would bring new challenges, new hatchlings to save, new keepers to train. He could not wait. His 5 dragons spread their wings in unison, scales glowing brilliantly in the darkness. Together, human and dragons, they had found their purpose. They were exactly where they were meant to be.